My name is Dominik. I'm head of the Innovation Lab of LBBW, the Landesbank Baden-Württemberg, as we like to say in German. And I have the pleasure to tell you something about venture clienting, so basically how we work together with startups. I'm now about 10 years in financial services, and venture clienting, or the cooperation between larger companies and startups, was always something I was really fascinated about, and where I see a lot of potential. But until recently, I think it didn't really work really well. So there are a few reasons for that, which we're going to dive into as well. And yeah, I'm really happy to talk to you about our model. And I'm not alone. I have my colleague Anna with me, and a really interesting startup, which could be a potential venture client partner for us, Teylor. But you can tell the crowd something about yourself.
Of course, my name is Anna, and I'm an innovation manager within the venture clienting team of LBBW. So I'm very happy to be here. And I also have 7 years of experience in banking and also worked in a fintech. So that's a perfect fit for doing venture clienting.
Yeah, my name is Amadeus. I'm Chief Market Officer at Teylor. I was often asked during the conference, you're the guy, you do venture clienting, don't? So well, not. I'm actually the receiver of venture clienting. So I'm a venture clientist, if this is a word. And yeah, happy to share a little bit of my experience during banking and fintech's experience in the past years.
All right. Just, I don't want to bore you, just who doesn't know us, a few words about LBBW. We have basically 2 brands we're operating under. We have a lot more, but those are the main 2. So LBBW is the one that deals with corporate clients and everything that's a little bit larger, and BW Bank is the retail arm. So don't tell anyone I said this, but it's basically Stadtsparkasse Stuttgart. So you can imagine what we're doing there, like private clients. All right, what are we? Who is doing venture clienting? It's as I told you, me. I'm head of the Innovation Lab, and I have 4 people dedicated to this. Why I'm bringing this up? Because it's a major part of venture clienting, which is Anna is going to tell you about. That you really need to put the resources behind that, and really need people that are fluent in the language you need to speak with startups, but also with the corporate. So it's really important that you have people that are dedicated to venture clienting within your organization if you want to do it professionally. So Maximilian is our venture clienting lead, and Anna and 2 of our colleagues, which are not here today, unfortunately, are the venture clienting team within the Innovation Lab of LBBW. All right, before we start, a little quiz or something. You can maybe have a guess. Maybe someone knows it already, but we have a few startups here. It's Spectral, for example, doing computer vision. Prime Sense in the upper right corner is an Israeli startup, is doing face recognition. Or Init AI was one of the earliest AI chatbots. And can you imagine what these startups have in common? Probably something to do with venture clienting, but anyone knows it. AI, yes, something with AI as well, yeah. But there's something, a really common denominator. So all of them provide essential functions for Apple iPhone. And by now there are a lot more startups within the iPhone, more startup solutions, but these were like one of the earliest few. And I really find that very interesting, because a lot of time I'm also asked, okay, why are you doing these things? Why are you not doing it alone? Why are you buying innovative solutions? Why are you not making it yourself? Also have this discussion internally with our IT a few times. So why do we need to buy this? And the answer is, even the most innovative companies in the world, like Apple, are doing this, are buying innovative startups, or are buying their solution. And it just shows you the real innovation, or a lot of innovation, just happens to be in startups and cannot be developed in corporates. And that's why venture clienting is like a really really important vehicle. What are we going to talk about? I'm going to tell you quickly what venture clienting actually is. We're going to talk about the benefits for corporates, the venture clienting process which we implemented, and then I'm very happy that Amadeus will share his perspective as well. We try to get through this a little bit faster so we can have a discussion at the end. All right, so this is a picture I'm quite proud of because I really like it. I invented it myself. My colleagues know this. It's a little bit of an adaptation of the Gartner hype cycle, and it shows basically my development from university until now. So I graduated in 2015, and I started as an executive assistant at a large public insurance company in Germany. And I was tasked with basically building an innovation lab as well. And I was having a lot of discussions with the board then, and it was a really like a time of fintech hype, and there were a lot of new fintechs coming up, a lot of investments in fintechs. Insurtech was something really new, and every board in Germany there was the same discussion. We need to do something with startups. We need to do something innovative. We need to build this corporate incubator. We need to be part of accelerators. We need to do hackathons. We need to do whatever, you know. Everyone was going to Berlin and doing fintech safaris and walking through the co-working spaces and, oh, these are fintechs. Oh, that's interesting. And everyone was having like a really good time. And then basically reality hit. And we saw that most of these vehicles didn't really create any business impact. So I saw so many, I think most of you saw so many corporate accelerators, incubators, etc. come and go, come and fail. And it is just, in my opinion, because there were false expectations. So these kind of vehicles are good for something, but most of them are not good at creating real business impact. It's overly complicated, especially if you want to do something with startups. Most of the time, people went towards corporate venture capital, which, if you think about it, makes it really complicated. You know, you invest in a startup, but what you basically want to do is use their solution. But since you're investing in them, you have a lot of other applications. You're looking at so many things. You cannot scale it because you can't do most of the corporate VCs don't have like tens of thousands of people working there. So it's most of the time like 4 or 5 people. So you can't do that many investments per year. So you're really limited by this. And what we then saw is like this slope of enlightenment we're on right now. I hope so, at least. And in my opinion, it's just keep it simple. It's the basic premise of this. You know, if you want to use the solution of a startup, build a process that lets you use the solution. Don't invest. Don't put up any programs to foster them. Don't whatever. You know, go to Berlin and look at them. Don't be part of any 1,000 ecosystems. Just build a process that lets you use the best startup solutions in the world. And that's what venture clienting basically is. It's to benefit strategically from startup solutions in a scalable way. So before we get into details, how we're going to do it, just a few more words why we're doing it. And there are 4 basic assumptions and 4 basic benefits for us, which are really important to us. The first one is it's cheap, it's fast, it grants us access to talent, which we don't have otherwise, and it lets us diversify our product offerings and optimize our processes. Just going into 2 of this. For example, the R&D investments, innovations without R&D investments. If you look at if you compare R&D investments of large corporates with the venture capital for top startups, which you have to kind of in your head, you have to be kind of, okay, venture capital that startups are getting is kind of like R&D investments. And the startups we work with usually have between 10 to at least 100 million of venture capital. If you look at all the money we spend on digitalization innovation within our company, if you compare these two, those of you who work in a bank know it's difficult to reach these numbers for all of your digitalization projects. So it's just you cannot compete with the kind of money that innovative companies like startups have to really develop specialized innovative solutions. You cannot compete with that within a company. Same goes for top talent. Everyone's talking about AI, Gen AI, whatever. How many Gen AI experts are there in Germany? So, you are one? Okay. So 1, I think that's the ratio, 1 out of like 30 or what? And are you getting those to work at your company? Not sure. OpenAI just opened the dependance in Munich. They're paying software engineers between 400,000 and 500,000 euros. So are you getting this top talent into your company? At least we probably won't get so many of them because there are not many and the competition for them is really fierce. But they are working in these kind of environments, in startups where you have high venture capital, where they're getting stakes, etc., etc. So it gets us access to talent which otherwise we would never get. And those are just 4 simple explanations why we're doing it. So we decided it was a no-brainer for us to implement this model within LBBW. I showed you the team before, and Anna, which is part of the team, is going to tell you how we did it.
Thank you very much. So we focused a lot about the definition of venture clienting and also about what are the benefits for corporates using venture clienting. So now we go into more detail what's all about venture clienting, how does venture clienting works in the end. So venture clienting means buying startup solutions in the end. So for example, license of a software. And what do we need? We need a process in the end. And the first way that's very familiar with the procurement process, I think some startups they want to go into the procurement process in a company, and it's very hard to go through a procurement process. There are different obstacles and challenges, and for those who are not familiar with these challenges, I want to give you 2 examples about that. The first example starts in the beginning when corporate and startups come together. Because within the procurement team, there are not startup expertise in this team because they only focus on very established suppliers in the end. And so therefore, they have balance sheets or other financial data. And startups, of course, they not have this financial data in the end. So it's not so easy to evaluate the financial data within startups. So it's better to focus on their knowledge and also on their technology. The other part is, or the second example about it is that when the startup reached the procurement process, so very good, you are into the company, and then you work together like for 6 months or so, and you get into the steps within the regulation process, and then finally the corporate realize, yes, I need one specific certification from the startup. The startup don't have the certification, the relationship ends, and by wasting much of resources. So what can venture clienting do in the end, and how we can reach this, or how can we overcome these challenges? And the first way, we have the venture clienting team as a solution, and also the venture clienting process. Let's start with the team. The venture clienting team steps in between the corporate and the startup, and we are network managers in the end. So we work together with different departments, and also like, for example, with the procurement team, with the IT team, and also like with data security. And we are also relationship managers, because there are different behaviors between a startup and a corporate, so it's very important that you have a good relationship at the end. And the second part to overcome the challenge is that we have a venture clienting process. And there are 3 key features about this process. The first key feature is we start always with the problem. So we're not pushing in startup solutions, we pull the problems out of the business units. The second part is that we match these problems with the specific startup solution out of the market. We find them in different databases, so be aware that you're in these databases. That's very relevant. And it's also important that you as a startup match like the regulatory requirements of a corporate. And the second part is that we always do a pilot. What that means is that we always test the solution, and it's very helpful because then we know, okay, that fits into our daily processes. We have a problem solution for in the end. So that's very good at all. So hopefully all of you also want to implement now the venture clienting model in your company or bank. So lucky you, I have 3 advices how you can start doing that. The first advice is, for traditional banks, startups are risky, of course. So you have to do many education, training sessions, also do some events, because in the end, you have to show them that the innovation of startups are very relevant for banks and also like for the internal stakeholders. The second part is the internal network at all. So what that means, we also mentioned that part before. It's very relevant that you have supporters in the different business departments. So that you have venture clienting supporters that helps you to provide the process from becoming a startup into the company. And the last part is, we all want to have the venture clienting model. I think we talked about the team and the process, and I want to give you another example that's very relevant for that. Let's start again with the team. So your team members should have like good communication skills, they should have innovation knowledge, and they should be very good project managers. So I think it's clear that you cannot do this part-time. You have to focus on that and be a full-time job. The other part is the process. So I think you saw our process. I think it's fine, it's good, but you have to find a process that fits in your environment in the end, in your corporate environment. And there are different processes out of the market with different companies in different areas. But you have to find your own process, and you have to relate the process to your internal procurement team and also like to the IT process. And the last thing is, always about top management. So be aware that you also have the support of the top management. And here we have the very problem about everything, the regulatory waters. So I really want to say we skip that part and we find a very fast process without regulation and can implement startups very well, but unfortunately not. The problem is that, it's not easy. You have to require also the regulatory requirements within your department. So we have a secret source about that, or secret sauce. It's like we establish like a startup checklist, and in this checklist you find like the different requirements the startup have to fulfill within regulation. It's not a bachelor thesis, it's like about 3 to 5 pages, so it's not that long. So we heard a lot about, how you can build up a venture clienting model in a company. Maybe we'll also have some startups in the audience, and I also want to give you some advices about how you can helping the process in venture clienting. In the first 2 steps within the venture clienting process, source and match, it's very relevant that you're visible. So what that means? We search startups in different databases, for example, like Crunchbase or PitchBook, or maybe we also Google you. So be aware that we can find you through our databases. The other part is be the problem solution fit. What that means? When we get pitch decks or when we look on our website, it's very important that I see your USP, your business model, your product. It shouldn't be fancy at all. It should be like, I get information I really need to have. And the third part is when we do product demos together, it's quite relevant that you match the requirements of a company and also the questions and not focus on telling us for 1 hour your corporate history. It might be interesting for you, but not for us. In the next 2 steps, pilot and integrate, it's very important that you be a supporter when you set up a pilot structure, for example, setting up the project plan or offering some training session for the pilot users. And establish clear communication channels. That's very important because we want to have regular meetings together between the corporate and the startup, and it's also important for you because you need to have the feedback from the pilot users that you can improve your product in the end. And it's also relevant because you have to set up some KPIs before you start, for example, piloting, so that you're aware or that you know in the end, is the startup or is this piloting good or is it not good? Or it works well or not well. And the last part, and that's also important, to be a regulatory navigator or champion, because when we reach the regulation process, we have to go into that. And we really need you on our side, in our boat in the end. So help us that we can go faster through this process. So have your documents and your certification on board. And when we want to have some quick sparring sessions, it's very helpful when you help us with that. And yeah, when you have some examples working together with other corporates, it's also very helpful. So now you heard a lot about the corporate perspective of venture clienting. So it's more interesting what a startup will tell us about that. And we're very happy to have Teylor here. And I hand over to Amadeus.
Thank you, Anna. So let's say, so to be mean, I would say this was a theory. Let's go to the real world. No, just joking. After 11 years being with banks and almost 9 years now being with fintechs, I'm super happy that something like venture clienting is developing right now, because this will improve for sure the entering of business collaborations between small companies, young companies, and corporates. A few words to Teylor that you can a little bit get an imagine about what we do and where we do come from. Teylor is a Swiss-based startup, scale-up. We were founded 8 years already ago in Zurich by our founder and CEO, Patrick Stoible. The core idea was and still is to improve the SME lending business. So what we do today is we do lend money to SMEs in the market. We do have our own private debt funds in Luxembourg. So we are able to lend our investors' money to SMEs out there. We do business mainly in Germany. So it's a 95% business in Germany, even though we are a Swiss-based company, and still focused on growing in the lending business itself. We do have a strong M&A strategy as well. So last year we acquired Credit Shelf, and we are in the middle of another acquisition right now. And beside the core business of lending, we figured out that, we built out a quite well platform, because we are able to do SME lending within 48 hours from onboarding to payout. So we made the decision a couple of years ago already to take the platform and bring to the market. So what we do right now is under the brand Teylor Technologies, which I am responsible for, is to take solutions or develop solutions out of the entire platform and bring to the market, help banks to improve their processes, always in terms of SME lending. Why has Teylor actually a right to exist? This is always a chart I like to use, because it shows very good regarding SME lending, where banks with big issues have, is that even though they do a lot of volume in the business, it's super hard for them, or most of them, to earn money, because they have so high process costs on the entire processes and lending entire process, that they are not actually able to make money with SME lending. And that's exactly where we want to help to improve processes, to be more efficient on the entire SME lending process, to make a better margin, and out of this, in the end, more money, or actually money out of this business. But enough about Teylor. Let's talk more about venture clienting. And I took these parts from your presentation, Anna, as well. As said, so I started 2017 in the open banking space with a small company, Fintech Systems. We were 10 people startup, and we reached out to banks and corporates. And do we have fintech startups around? Okay, so you guys know probably how tough it is to enter a business relationship with corporates. Of several reasons, but it's a huge thing. Of course, we do it because it's great. Once you have made this big step, then you have a big opportunity and can grow with your clients. But in the end, sorry guys, it's a pain. It's just a pain from the beginning to the end, because this whole process is just so hard. And even though you have your champions found in the company, it's still a pain because it's a corporate and they have their rules and they have the ways they have to go, and they follow the rules, especially in Germany, because the Germans always follow the rules. And this is something which is breaking, I think, right now with venture clienting, really to think it through. Okay, how can we improve even these processes to bring small companies and big companies together? And I think this is a fundamental change actually happening right now in the market. I mean, 7 years ago, it was super cool if a startup came around, hey, you are the guys with the sneakers, so we want to work with you, just out of this reason. And this turned a little bit, so we get more and more the feedback from the banks, which is good for us, but not good for pure startups. Okay, we actually want to work with scale-ups, not pure startup. So banks and corporates became a little bit more cautious, at least my opposition. So everything is changing a little bit from super easy to complicated, and now I have the feeling to, okay, let's really have a look on it. How can we just make it in a logical manner? And these 4 and 5 steps actually, which you, Anna, mentioned as well, is a great view on where we, from a startup scale-up perspective, struggle, and where the best opportunities actually are in to improve processes. It begins with the sourcing. I mean, as a young company, if you reach out to a corporate or a corporate reach out to you, you do everything to get the pitch. So if they ask you for, okay, can you please fill out these 10 Excel sheets, because you need to do this before even we can talk, you do it. But it's a huge pain, because I mean, it's logical, right? So you have a lot of work even before you have the chance to pitch. And that's what I have seen. So we had the chance 2 times now, being part of a venture clienting process, that this was already way more efficient. It was like, okay, we know who you are, we know what you do, we have dedicated questions. Can we talk about this to find out if you are a match? So really to start 10 steps further, instead of, okay, tell us who you are, what you want to do, and fill out all these stupid questionnaires, instead of, okay, we know who you are, and let's talk about this top 5 questions. And then we know, okay, if you do fit to our company, and if you are basically a fit to what we are looking for. So sourcing and matching is a huge advantage, because especially for us as a young company, it takes so much effort and money in the end, even to get this first step into the company. Then finally you made the pitch and you got shortlisted, then the negotiation starts. The next big pain, you probably know that, because you're a small company, you want to enter the big company, so you know how it goes. And what I have experienced in the venture clienting experience is really on an eye level. Like, okay, we want to collaborate, so let's find a good way of find a good pricing model which fits to both of us. I mean, that's what always everybody is saying, but really to do it like this is differently. And that's what I had experienced, which was really, really nice, to have this feeling of, okay, it's not like pushing you down. You as a small company, you want to make business with us because we are the big ship. No, it's really like, okay, what is good for you, then it's good for us. So it was a really nice way, still tough, but still nice way of negotiation, which was extremely helpful for the entire processes. Then finally, you found a pricing, you get the tick box on, okay, this we have a solution match, we have a pricing match. Then the real pain starts, contracting. Contracting with a bank is the worst, I can tell you. It's, oh boy, that's just horrible. But you have to do it. I mean, you need a contract. And the banks need a lot of contracts if they want to collaborate with you. And I was curious in these 2 processes, okay, how the hell won't they improve such processes? Because you just said it, there are things you can't change. What has changed was that a lot of internal discussions, actually, which were often, we were often forced to do with the company, were then internally. So they took a lot of the questions, had the discussions internally with the legal departments to say, look, okay, we know we need this, we know what they can do, and they solved, I would say, 60-70% internally. So we had only 30-40% of meetings where we really had to talk about the contracts and involve our lawyers, which are super expensive as well. So this was a huge advantage, because it was really, I would say the biggest efficiency plus I have experienced, because it's just the biggest pain. And I lost the deals because of contracting. So you have done so much things before, but then you lost the deal because, yeah, some things you can't fulfill, and the deal is done. And then finally, onboarding and growth. So then finally you have the contract, you start your collaboration. I made good deals in the past with banks, and nothing happened. So we got our fee once a month was great, but we actually the project actually never really started. So I mean, we were at that time a SaaS company, so we didn't have any really transactions, so we were not able to make money with it. So it's super important to have somebody aside from the company then to push the entire project, to bring it through, to get it started, and then to growth. And this is something where are we in right now with these two companies, which is great because we have our champion alongside. We are actually one team to get it live and to make it bigger. So therefore, for my two experiences of venture clienting, I'm super happy to experience it. I think I can just emphasize to all the banks out there and corporates that is something you should consider to do. I think it brings a lot of more efficiency to all of us. And yeah, happy to take a few more questions. We have 4 minutes left, even to me or to these guys.
Okay, hi. So thanks for this nice presentation. So my question is like the timeline. Could you share from your two experiences, like in each, how much overall takes, and what was like the biggest bottlenecks, like moving from also from pilots to rolling out, if there was any rollouts there? Yeah.
So with the two companies, we are in this stage with both companies, and the aim was actually 3 months. In the end, it was one time 4 months and one time 4.5, but still really okay for closing a bank.
That's also something that's really important to us. Before we did venture clienting, we sometimes spent 1.5 years in this process, and then we realized, okay, this won't work, and so we really cut down the time by at least 60-70%. So a lot faster and more efficient.
What kind of, is this going towards Amadeus, what kind of recommendation do you have for startups to find companies, banks who do the venture clienting? I imagine the market is not too big.
I mean, to be honest, be lucky. I think that's not a strategy. I think we as startups and young companies can ask for it. So do you have kind of venture clienting in your house? And as more often companies do hear that, I would imagine more companies maybe do it. But in the end, if you have your target, you're going to target it with or without venture clienting, to be honest. But I think to push for it and to show and ask for it and show examples, I think brings corporates maybe under pressure to think about it and maybe reconsider their approach.
Just to give one simple remark, it's not even that beneficial to find banks with venture clienting setups, because I always get this after I do these kind of talks. I get like lots of emails. I heard you do venture clienting. But we are not, as Anna said, we're not pushing solutions. So we're basically working within our company, finding problems, and then scan the market for it. I mean, it's okay if we know you, but there's so many thousands of startups. We cannot network with each and every one of them. So I like to talk to you, but it's not that beneficial for you to just directly come to us and do your sales pitch within the business departments. That's more efficient.
Is this on? Yeah. Great presentation. I think this is a question for everyone. We spoke a lot about the process of, bringing these two worlds together. And then I think a word that stood out to me was stigma. What happens and how do you bridge the gap between, a startup that's very agile with, the corporate that is maybe not so agile, no offense. What does that look like on both sides, by the way?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think communication is key about that. So you have to do a lot of regular meetings, talking about what's the process in the LBBW. So what have you to do as a startup? So what are the different steps within the company. It's very important, and also be very transparent with your regulation requirements, because that's always the key, because the process maybe will end, and yeah, start with that in the beginning, and that's fair for everyone in the end.
And I mean, the messages need to be clear, because needs to be a little bit more drastic, I think, than the end. What I always tell my board is that startups are not what you're thinking about in the first moment, like two people sitting in a garage. It's growth startups like Teylor, for example, that have really top talent, that have good processes, etc. So it's just communicating about what startups actually are, and that there are just things that startups can do that we can never do. Also, although the board doesn't want to hear that a lot of times, but yeah.
Dietmar from Bethmann Bank, ABN AMRO, here in Germany. For LBBW, it's of course a matter of size, yeah, where you have the team, because the team, what you run, produce running costs each and every day. Then you look for your business departments to come up with a problem, and then the process can start. So of course, then for the startup, it's clear it's a better winning position from the start, because you take over some of these, let's say, original setup effort. But of course, that won't work for each and every company, especially for the smaller ones, where the solution perhaps might also fit. And so that is one question: how do you see it in the market? We say, okay, it is a good idea, we know the process works, but then of course you only can build it in a sizable company to have a team like you running this process. And the second thing is, when looking to the last thing here, onboarding and growth. So for me, it's a bit surprising if the solution is that good and the processes are so, let's say, clean and lean, there should be a normal demand then for the solution then. Why is it then so hard to grow it if the project is that good, or if the offering is that good as a solution as such? Thank you.
Maybe I start, just rephrase it. Is your question how to implement venture clienting in smaller companies since you don't have the resources? Okay. Difficult, to be honest. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That's you need the resources to do this. Otherwise, as Anna said, it cannot be like a side gig for someone within the innovation department. It needs to be full time. But I also experienced this. Even the smaller companies, most of the time, have 1 or 2 or 3 people that are doing like innovation work, most of the time. And then just use 1 or 2 of those. As I said in the beginning, a lot of these innovation labs in the past years just didn't produce any business impact, really. And then just ask yourself, are we doing the same thing again, or new things? And then maybe use those people. And the second question, I don't know.
And maybe we take this separately, because we're off time and only got a time.
Oh, yeah.
We need to jump off the stage. So happy to have a chat afterwards. Yeah. Thank you so much.